Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Amanda, and this is a vlog of me unmasking my autism and ADHD since getting a diagnosis a little over 2 years ago. First off, if you watch all my videos as they come out, one, thank you so much. I love that. But two, you might notice that I wore this shirt and had very similar makeup in my last video. It has, in fact, been a week since my last video. I did not film these back to back. This is my my most recent purchase, and I absolutely love this shirt. So when it came back through the wash, I put it on again and forgot that I was going to film a video today. And y'all know, executive functioning is down low. It was not about to change just to film. Y'all are lucky I am actually dressed and not in my PJs like I am for many of my videos. Not that there's anything wrong with hanging out in your PJs. Also, I can tell very much right now that I'm using my masked voice. This is very interesting. Yeah, so I wonder if y'all could tell that too. I just had coffee with a new friend. Well, not a new friend, but acquaintance from my book club. And while I am as unmasked as possible at book club, a lot of times your mask just automatically slips on because it's a self-defense mechanism that my brain created that I've been dealing with for 40 plus years, and it takes so long to unmask. And in some situations, it's not safe to unmask. So it's even people who are unmasking their autism, a lot of times it'll never be 100%. And keep in mind, there's a lot of autistic people who can't unmask. Okay, that's not what this video is about though. I'm going to try to relax and get into my own, I'm at home, I don't need to be masked. I try to film my videos as unmasked as possible, but my voice, this is my masked voice right now. I'm going to pause and go get some water and come back. Honestly, I don't even really like my masked voice. It just comes out sometimes because that's how I talked for so long. Okay, so in today's video, I want to talk about gossip. And okay, so thank you for having patience with me, guys. So normally I don't edit my videos very much, but because this is a topic that's still fairly new to me, I have some reference material up. So I might be pausing to kind of refresh what I want to talk about and then come back to the video, which means there will be a little bit more edits than typical. So today I want to talk about gossip. The reason why I want to talk about it is many autistic people, like myself, are black and white thinkers. And a lot of us, we will have hard rules, especially when it comes to social rules. And sometimes we realize it's a rule, and sometimes we don't even realize it's a rule that our brain made up. But I think this is pretty common in a lot of Western cultures, but specifically in America, gossip has been taught as something that is negative and bad and wrong, and you're a bad person if you participate in gossip. And I have had situations throughout my life where I've really struggled with this viewpoint, but because it was the rule, the social normal rule, I would do my best to not participate in gossip. And as an autistic person, it's one of those things that where people say don't gossip, but people still do it because it's a natural human tendency because we are a social species. So autistic people who follow the rule, no gossip, tend to get left out of situations, social situations and conversations, and we miss a lot of what happens around us because of us trying to adhere so black and white to a thing that society does. And it's frustrating because it's one of those rules where it's like, don't gossip, but people still do it. Okay. And then, like I just said, like the autistic people don't. And then, anyway, I don't remember when it happened, but I was talking with somebody at some point in my life. I know, so specific, right? But they planted the seed. And that's one thing that I love about my channel. I, a lot of times, don't know how much of a difference that I'm going to make about disability advocacy and all of that. But if I can plant a seed in someone's head and it takes root and grows, even if it doesn't make a difference for several years later, like I know I love the ripple effect of change. So somebody I was talking to a long time ago told me that gossip was only negative because of puritanical and patriarchal viewpoints, and that in Indigenous societies, gossip was actually seen as a positive thing. And at the time, I was like, that's really interesting, but I didn't really explore it further than that. And in light of everything that is happening in America, I have now become a lot more interested in learning about the systems that contribute to my oppression. And as a woman, gossip is oftentimes targeted to women as a negative thing. And so hearing that as something that contributes to my oppression, that obviously made me want to look further into it so that I could kind of break it down and understand it more and understand why or how, right, that might be the case. And so in patriarchal societies, gossip is often associated with women and feminized spaces, domestic settings, social gatherings, like, the little women's gossip group kind of, is how it'll get labeled. And so society, and it's very important to understand that these puritanical, patriarchal belief systems have become so normalized that women and other people that are harmed by them still enforce it because it's been internalized. So even though gossip often hurts women's groups, a lot of times it'll be women enforcing the don't gossip rule. And I'm going to explain the difference between harmful gossip and useful, constructive gossip. But gossip is labeled as frivolous, malicious, often untrustworthy, and it delegitimizes women's voices, and it reinforces the idea that the way that women tend to communicate is inferior and can be dangerous. Gossip is used to maintain social hierarchies. And as autistic people, we don't like social hierarchies most of the time. And so that's probably one reason why I, inherently was like wanting to start to question this. Gossip is framed as a destabilizing force because it will allow individual people to share information outside of those formal hierarchical channels. And that can be seen as a threat to the people in authority. People in authority want to control the narrative. So if the people in control can discourage gossip, these puritanical and patriarchal systems can keep their power and make sure that their information remains centralized and that dissent and criticism is suppressed. Puritanical societies often employ shame as a way for social control. And so when we frame as gossip as being sinful or immoral or shameful, then that helps keep the women in line. Framing gossip as shameful discourages dialogue about personal or community issues, and it It reinforces a culture of secrecy and repression. This actually has contributed a lot to the individualistic attitudes that Americans have, instead of like having the whole culture be accountable for things as a group. In individualistic societies like America, gossip is seen as a violation of your personal privacy. American culture emphasizes individualism, and we have seen how that has really harmed us as a country. We're so focused on our specific needs that we're not thinking about our broader community. Our personal boundaries have become more prioritized than communal interdependence. In other countries, gossip can act as a way of maintaining social bonds and a collective well-being. And I'm going to explain about that too. In Indigenous cultures where gossip is not frowned upon, it actually becomes a form of social regulation. It allows a community to address a conflict and hold individual people accountable without resorting to like a formal system of punishment. And like people are going to collectively kind of hold each other in check before things have to escalate. Gossip can be a way of sharing cultural stories and knowledge. It's a way to pass down information. And in cultures where gossip is not viewed as negative, it can foster a sense of connection and interdependence with community by sharing information about other individuals, reinforcing their relationships and creating shared bonds of understanding of social dynamics. In many Indigenous societies, gossip is not seen as malicious, but as a natural part of communal life where everyone's actions are understood to have collective consequences. And this fact is one that is really interesting to me right now. In some Indigenous contexts, gossip can be a tool of resistance against colonial or oppressive forces. By sharing information about injustices or abuses, communities can mobilize collective action and protect their members. This can be seen where, like, oftentimes women are told not to talk about their own like bodies. Like the reason why the breast cancer, the pink ribbon, that whole thing started because before that, to say the word breast in public was considered to be taboo. And if women aren't allowed to talk about their breast and the fact that their breast has cancer, then they weren't getting the support they needed. So they needed a way to remove the taboo aspect around the word breast so that women could actually get the support and help that they needed. And same thing, like there's so many topics that are considered taboo, and until women started to talk about it to each other, everyone was suffering in silence. And this has happened with a lot of women's health issues and even autism, because it wasn't until people got on, TikTok really and started talking openly about their autistic diagnosis and sharing it, then more and more women were like, hey, me too, and getting their own diagnoses and like spreading awareness. So, I mean, it's like gossip on a public stage, but it was talking about things that women were told not to talk about, and it's a way to control the communities. So as autistic people, when we've been told for so long that gossip is a bad thing, sometimes it can be really hard to change our perspective on that, because we've internalized that rule, so to say. But if you think of it like a game where only certain people are allowed to make those rules, if someone outside of the group tries to share information, it challenges the rules and they're labeled as a troublemaker. And that's how gossip got stigmatized. It was like, these are the rules, and if you break the rules, then you aren't playing nice. But those rules were set up to keep control over power structures, those hierarchies I was talking about. So gossip can be used to help people in a small group. Gossip can strengthen the group because you're like talking with different people in like informal settings to kind of get clues and check on the health of the social group, not like the physical health, but like check in with people, make sure that everyone in the group is being heard and seen and that no one's being left out. It's, used in a way to include people instead of excluding them. Like, or for instance, if one member of a group is kind of like acting in a way that might be harmful, instead of calling them out publicly in the big group session, checking in with other people and, direct communication is always good. But for instance, somebody might just be butting heads with just me. And if it's just us kind of butting heads, then we need to work on it. But if I kind of suspect that that person is butting heads with like other people in the group too, then it's not just a me issue. It's like a group issue. And so kind of going around and finding out and then having more information and realizing, yes, this person's behavior is harming the whole group, then being able to go and not attack, but just say, hey, your behavior is causing me some issues. Is there any way we can work on it? It's harming other people in the group too. And again, not as an attack, but as a way to let the person know that what they're doing is harming the group as a whole. And the goal is making sure everybody is seen and heard and included. So getting down to the reason of like why they might be behaving the way that they are. This is something that is still hard for me to wrap my head around it. Like you can kind of maybe tell I'm like struggling because again, I was raised that gossip is bad. So it's hard to navigate that there are positive uses for gossip. And so you got to think of it like as a tool. A knife can hurt somebody, but a knife can also be used to like make a meal that feeds the whole community. And so it's how we use gossip that can make it be a caring act that builds community instead of one that hurts and tears people down, because gossip absolutely can be used in harmful ways. So when you're talking about somebody and in your mind, you're like, is this gossip? Am I gossiping about them? You want to focus on facts and not judgments about the person. Like, this is what happened, this, and this, and not like judging those actions. Try to consider your intent. Am I sharing this information to help somebody or to harm somebody? I also don't talk about anybody behind their back that I wouldn't want to share to their face. Oftentimes, it's not conversations you want to have with people, but I'm not sharing any kind of information with somebody that if it got back to them that I said it would hurt them. That's why like sticking to facts over judgments is very important. And when you're talking to other people, you're working on fostering an understanding, a group understanding, with empathy and cohesion as the goal, not division. If you're in a conversation and it starts to feel mean-spirited or harmful, then that means that it may have switched into the type of gossip that we do want to stay away from. And then it's time to it's okay to step back and set a boundary. I'm not saying that gossip is always good, but I am wanting us to start thinking critically about the systems that have been in place for hundreds of years that have contributed to our oppression. And I think it's worth questioning whether gossip is always bad, especially since, like I said at the beginning of the video, where it's often framed as negative, and yet people in our society are still going to do it because it's natural behavior. But when you have that like guilt or shame, then you're not looking at it critically and you're not using it in that positive way. You might, because there's no, there's no elderly generational sharing of how to use gossip constructively, because it's been suppressed as a form of communication in our culture. But teaching, like I am in this video right now, fumbling through it as I am, teaching that it can be a tool for empowerment and for communities to build and grow and come together is important. I suspect my autistic community has had gossip used against them in negative and bad ways. And so a lot of us may be extra sensitive to the term gossip. I am fairly sure, I was fairly unaware socially when I was in high school and middle school. But looking back now after my diagnosis, I am so sure that people gossiped behind me, behind my back, and in hurtful, harmful ways. But we need to like break those kinds of actions, and we need to start learning how to share information with each other in small ways that build community instead of tear apart community. And this all came up for me personally because y'all have heard me talk about my book club on and off on this channel for a long time. When I first started the book club, I felt very much like an outsider. Then it became like a really great community where books were kind of like our binding, but we started hosting, like I had Friendsgiving this last year, and we are hosting baby showers for each other and birthday parties and all of this stuff. And it's become more of a community, and I've really, really relied on it. But in the last couple of months, our group split. And as an autistic person who oftentimes doesn't see the social subtext beneath the surface, I didn't know any of this was going on. I thought we were all still one big happy group. And again, this kind of be where gossip can still be like harmful because people were breaking off and talking. I wasn't part of any of those chats. So I was blindsided by the split. I did not know it was coming, but our group kind of split off. And as I am trying to figure out what happened, because it came out of nowhere for me, all of a sudden I feel like, oh my gosh, am I gossiping about these people that I care about? But my intention is to keep building these ties with these people that I've come to think of as close acquaintances / friends. Y'all know I struggle with those words and how to group or define people. But I'm realizing like my intention is to be able to maintain community with these people, understand what happened. I don't want any harm for anybody in the groups. And so this whole concept of gossip kind of rose to the surface. And that person that I talked to, many years ago when she said, gossip in Indigenous communities isn't negative, I'm like, oh, that's kind of what I feel like here. Like, I want to talk to these people and find out what happened, but talking about it as a whole group isn't necessarily going to be effective. Ideally, talking about it all in one big room to get everything out in the open, but realistically, that's just not going to happen. So I have been able to like actually be a bridge of communication for a couple of people, which is another good use of this type of gossip. And like, I'm talking to this person and I'm talking to this person. And I'm like, oh, y'all are miscommunicating with each other. So y'all need to go talk. And so using gossip in that kind of way to like bring people together again, right? For people like myself who are autistic, gossip can be very confusing and overwhelming because it often involves reading between the lines of what people are saying. And we're not good at that. Some of us really can't even do that. I often can't. I need direct communication. And there's a lot of unspoken social rules that happen. But again, just keeping the intention of like do no harm, not passing judgments, just listening for information can be helpful. I want to hear what your views are on this. If you've ever heard of this reframing of gossip before, if this is a new concept for you, keep in mind that if it is a new concept for you, a lot of times us autistic people will be programmed to go, that doesn't fit. That doesn't fit into what I've always known. And that's okay. That is okay. But take your time with it. Think about it. Sit with it for a little bit. And it's okay to disagree with me. I'm on here often to just bring up ideas. I'm not necessarily right about everything. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I'm very much exploring this subject matter for myself. I like to look towards Indigenous cultures versus Western culture on a lot of social things, because I think a lot of Indigenous, and I know that's like a broad, like wide sweeping kind of, like there's so many different types of Indigenous cultures and they're not a monolith, right? But in general, from what I have learned, their social structures are based much more on community, like everybody needing each other to survive. And because I see humans as social creatures, that just makes more sense to me. And Western culture has become more and more individualistic, which I think tears people down, tears the society down, I mean. So I think looking towards Indigenous cultures for education on how to do better is a good thing, honestly. So that's kind of where my point of view in it is coming from. I'm not saying like Western culture hasn't contributed good things to society. There as good contributions, but socially, Western culture, especially in American, based on puritanical and patriarchal views, is a culture of oppression. And I don't like that. I'm more for freedom and equality. So I would love to hear your thoughts. I know that, especially like I was trying to say, and I think I got on a tangent, if you were ever hurt by gossip as a child or even recently, it can probably feel hard to hear this. Like, gossip could be used for good. Like, that might be hard to like reconcile if you've been personally hurt by it. But I do acknowledge that there's a lot of in our culture, the like negative, bad ways. And we want to shift to it, using it as a good tool. Until the next video, bye guys.